Welcome to Paradelphia Radio. This is Rick Pruitt once again here in the Toxic Radio Studios. And Mike.
Hey.
We are back, baby.
You missed a great time last week, though.
It's been a while since I've been on air.
Thick thighs will make you... Oh, it got weird.
Yes. I heard the show. Miss Jenna B. in her takeover. She's been wanting to do a takeover for... I don't know how long.
They popped open the bottles of wine and everything.
I heard Gene brought wine. Yeah. I didn't bring wine tonight. I'm sorry.
What are you doing?
You're killing me. The precedent was set, and I didn't follow through.
I know. We got to have wine, some whiskey, maybe some tequila.
You had all that last week?
No, but you got to...
I got to up the ante?
You got to up the ante each week. Next thing you know, there's a keg in the corner. We're doing keg stands during the show.
All right. That's a whole different show.
That's the way America would want it.
Things could go vastly differently with a show like that. Oh, my God. All right, so it is just me and you tonight, Mike. I think
I'm okay with that.
Doug is stuck down in Vineland or Salem or wherever he's at right
Somewhere
now.
he's stuck. Is he really stuck? Just like he hit you up for help, and you were just like, "I got to do a show, bro.
I got to do a show.
I can't come."
No, I don't mean he's stuck like his car. I mean he's stuck at work.
So you could have still went and saved him.
Yeah. I could have made an excuse and drug him out of there. I should have called. I should have called down. Let me talk to your boss.
Yeah, let me talk to your boss. We need him.
We need him.
We need him.
You don't need him. We need him. All right. So this week, we have an interesting show for you. I am very stoked because we finally have a guest on that I've been trying to get back on our show for quite a long time now. I've been talking about it for months, it seems like. We are finally going to get Don and Vicki Smeraldi from Scary Monsters Magazine back on air.
Cool.
Now, I was talking about this to you before we went on air today. I don't believe they actually have been on Toxic Radio.
I don't think so. I've heard about them, but...
Yes. I think we started talking to them, and we got to know them while we were still over at Wildfire. And since we've been back here on Toxic, obviously we haven't had them on the air in the last month and a half or so. But I have been trying to get them on. They've been unbelievably busy. This seems like their crushed busy time of the year,
right? Between
February and June, because I think they release, I want to say 3 issues of the magazine between February and June, 3 or 4. I'm not sure if it's 3 or 4, but I mean it's a lot of work obviously to do that, and the two of those guys, they pretty much do 99% I think of what is involved in doing that, which I don't even know what the hell's all involved in that. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
But they're damn good at it because they are multiple Rondo Award-winning publishers.
Very cool.
So that is coming up in about 25 minutes. We're going to have them on to talk all about. It was originally. This is how long it's been. I've been trying to get them on air. It was originally going to be about the issue they had out back in March, I think it was. It's called Monster Memories, which is basically a really cool issue of their magazine every year. They put out where readers write in their stories of how they kind of came to love these old horror sci-fi genre movies. You know, and everyone has a story behind, their quote origin story behind their love of these movies,
right?
Or just a story that's kind of a funny, poignant story, from their life related to one of the movies or meeting someone in one of the movies or whatever. So that was the first magazine we were going to talk to them about. Then they put out their issue, I think it was 113. The numbers are completely off. It might be 112 or 113 in April. And since then, they've put out another one, and I think they're prepping yet another one to happen later in the summer, early fall. So they work 3 months ahead on the magazine, so they're constantly busy.
I've know friends of mine who have attempted to start some kind of publication, magazine, what have you. It's a lot of friggin' work to stay consistent, stay up on it.
Oh yeah.
And in today's world where everything's digital and everything's immediate,
right.
Twitter, Facebook, all social media,
right.
To have a successful publication like that is not very easy.
Right.
I mean, you can release it digital and all that kind of stuff, but still, you got to be on top of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they just, I think this last issue, if I'm not mistaken, they put it out there, or they're going to put it out digitally, I think. We could talk to them, ask them about that tonight. But they haven't to this point, because I think this particular magazine is a throwback. It's the original Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine from the 50s and 60s that everyone grew up with,
right?
Where you had the old fashioned pulp paper and just the black and white pictures.
Yeah,
and, there's just a look and an aesthetic feel to this type of magazine that's hard to replicate if you are just reading it off a computer,
right?
And they do, they'll send me stories and stuff like that, or even magazine, copies or whatever on the computer, and I read them on the computer, but I also go buy the magazine because I just like having this particular type of magazine. It's cool to kind of flip through the pages, and it's just a retro feel. I don't know how else to say it.
No, there is a different feel. There's a different smell to a magazine. There's like all these, especially for people like me and you that grew up with magazines and having them in your mailbox and all that kind of stuff. Like it definitely it activates those senses from having that. It's a very nostalgic thing. But I also think that even with all the digital, there is something about actually turning a page. I mean, I have an iPad where like you kind of use your finger and it makes it like it's turning a page, but it's not real.
Right.
And there's definitely something there.
It's not real.
It's not real. Don't act like you're an actual page turning. I know the real deal.
You want to hear a funny story? When I was a kid, I never got into comic books.
Me neither.
And I'm the kind of guy who it would seem like I would. We're just getting a tornado warning?
Tornado warning in this area till 8:45 p.m. Take shelter now.
Seriously?
I'm dead serious.
Take shelter now.
It says take shelter now.
When they say this area, how big is the area?
Every device right now is going off in this studio, telling us to take shelter now.
Take shelter now.
So, what did you do? We can't even look out the window because I put up a green screen.
You got a damn green screen
behind me. I got
behind
a green screen up there.
There could be cows flying towards me, and I have no idea.
We have no idea. What happened to Rick and Mike? They died doing what they loved. They died doing the show.
Warning.
So if you're hearing this and you don't hear another one, no, we died for you. No, I'm kidding. That's a horrible thing to say.
Should we perhaps take a break and check this out?
Should we say, let's. This is very unorthodox to take a break this early in the show, but let's take a couple of songs break to go see if we should take shelter.
Yeah.
So you want to tell them we'll be right back?
We will be right back, hopefully. All right, we are back here on Paradelphia on Toxic Radio. That was literally the longest break we have ever taken in my entire time doing this show.
Well, to the people listening on the podcasted version, it was nothing.
It was nothing.
It was nothing to me and you. It was a little scary.
Yeah, that was a little weird. That was the reason behind that. If you guys just listened over the last half hour and you heard all music, we were off air because we had a tornado warning that hit us and literally said on every device we have, take shelter now.
Take shelter now. Like, not even just like, you might want to take, no, get there.
Right.
Like, stop what you're doing.
So.
And if that had anything to do with any spirits, because I'm Skeptic Mike, I believe. I believe.
So, we heeded the warning, and Mike was downstairs coming out of the closet.
Oh, dude. So we don't have a basement here where we're broadcasting from. We have a tiny closet, which I guess that's like the best place to go. That's what my theory was. Now I'm pissed because I gotta put everything back into the closet.
Right. You get all that shit pulled out. You got a head start on cleaning for the weekend.
Oh, shut up. Always a silver lining.
So we are now apparently in the clear. They canceled the tornado warning.
Yes, the storm is still moving through South Jersey,
right.
So other people are now getting that warning right now.
Yeah, mostly in Burlington County and places like northwest of here, I think it is.
So everybody, take shelter.
Yeah, up there, take shelter. Be safe. We are like the freaking little Kansas this year, man. This is about in my entire life, I could count on one hand and have fingers left over.
Yeah.
The number of times that they said tornado in New Jersey. And we've literally had like 4 or 5 of these freaking things in the last 2 months.
Yeah, 4, like a lot of warnings, and actual tornadoes have touched down and devastated places.
Like, this is crazy.
Global warming, man. Global warming.
Al Gore was right.
Yeah, Al Gore was right. We're sorry, Al Gore. We're sorry. Make it stop.
All right, so we are going to rework a few things here in the show. We are still going to have Don and Vicki Smeraldi call in from Scary Monsters Magazine. I'm in contact with them now, just letting them know, to give it a couple of minutes and to call in. We are going to get them on air to talk about the magazine.
Yes.
And that is mostly what we're going to be doing tonight because, again, we lost a good 40-ish minutes, 45 minutes due to a tornado warning.
But here's to everybody listening. I'm standing at the closet ready to shut the door. Rick's at the door looking out into the rain just going, it's coming down hard.
I like to see what's coming.
Next thing you know, Rick just gets pulled out. Bye, Rick.
Sucked out.
See ya.
Like the cow in Twister. So yeah, we're gonna have Don and Vicki on here in a couple minutes. They should be calling in very soon to talk about their magazine. And again, it was going to be a night where we talked. I was going to get to this before the warning. About a UFO incident we had up at Fort Dix back in the late 70s. That was going to be the second hour of the show. What I'm probably going to wind up doing is pushing that out to maybe a couple of weeks from now, possibly next week, depending on how it goes. Next week, I actually have another guest, Barry Strom, who you guys have heard on the show multiple times. But again, I don't think it was somebody that's called into Toxic. But Barry has called over the last couple of years, and you know him from his spirit board, and he does a lot of spirit board readings with him and his wife. And he has written a few books where he has contacted some famous people through the spirit board, and he's talked to us about that. This time, next week, he is going to be coming on to talk about his contact he has made with, and don't shoot the messenger here because I'm just telling you what he's claiming, Jesus Christ. He claims that he has been in contact and literally wrote a book. He sent me the book, so I'm still reading through the book of his discussions on the spirit board with the literal Jesus Christ. So
you ain't keep my mouth shut.
Yeah,
just
man.
Gonna not say nothing.
Yeah, man.
Look, I have conversations with myself all the time. I don't know who I'm talking to. My brain is a messed up place to visit.
So that is next week's show, but we'll get to that all in good time here. So in the meantime, Mike, what do you think here? Are we safe? Are we good? Have you seen any other warnings come through?
I'm waiting for another, like an earthquake warning.
Have you ever had that happen before?
I mean, we all get weather warnings or, a tornado watch or whatever the one is before that. I've seen those. Never that extreme. But, anything could happen. I mean, anything could really happen. It doesn't matter that we're in Jersey. A tornado could touch down, and then next thing you know, no more.
All right. So we have, I think we have Don and Vicki on air, or on the phone here. Don, Vicki, is that you?
We're not in Kansas anymore.
Let me tell you something. We're not in Kansas either, but man, you never know it. Good Lord. How you guys been?
Man. Crazy, busy, crazy, pumping out pages and pages and pages of monsters.
Yeah.
In the latest issue.
Yeah, so as I have alluded to in the show over the last few minutes, this is Don and Vicki Smeraldi. They are the publishers of Scary Monsters Magazine, just the best damn magazine out there going for the horror and sci-fi genre. So multiple award winners, again, congratulations once again.
It's just crazy. We're It really... Besides the fact that we're monster kids and we get to, talk monsters all day long, getting recognized with something like that, other people feeling the exact same way. It's great. We're just thrilled. Yeah,
that's quite the honor, and you guys have done it multiple times. That's impressive. There's quite a few magazines out there. I was surprised at the number of magazines related to the genre that are out there. You don't hear about them a whole lot, but. There are quite a few, and you guys have won that award multiple times. That's pretty impressive.
Well, we're shocked, honestly. We really were not expecting it at all. The first time we're just blown away, and to win it again is just mind-boggling. And they had like a record number of voters turn out too. So I guess it's the most voted on Rondo Awards this year ever.
Yeah.
So That's exciting.
Very cool. So I was alluding at the beginning of the show. I've been trying to get you guys on for months now, and the questions I wrote originally related to your magazine, or I'm sorry, your issue that you put out back in, I think it was February or March, the Monster Memories magazine. Yeah.
So March, really, it's similar. It has a lot of different writers than we normally have. It's similar to the feel of a regular Scary Monsters magazine, but it's kind of a special issue where you hear from people you normally wouldn't. Everyone writing in about their memories as kids, monster kids.
Right. And it's important. Like to me, I think that's important to kind of keep. It's almost like around a campfire kind of thing. Like they used to tell stories around a campfire, and it's sort of that feel to this topic now because they don't make movies like they used to. And that's a cliche to say that, but they really don't.
Mm-hmm.
And how important do you think that a magazine like yours, and specifically an issue like that, is to keeping the fire burning, so to speak, for this type of genre?
I really think we play a big role in film history preservation because everything's lost now, and it blows me away. You talk to some young kids, and an example I always use is like the film I Am Legend, and I'll say, well, I Am Legend is just a remake of Charlton Heston and Omega Man, which is just a remake of Vincent Price, Last Man on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it really kids today, they see something and they think it's original, and they have no idea.
Right.
All of these different films that have just been remade and retitled, and they're clueless.
Right. Now, one of the
we feel it's an important role that we play in educating and preserving history.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the feature articles that you had in that issue, the Monster Memories issue, was about a guy named Ray Harryhausen. Why don't you explain who Ray Harryhausen was to anyone that does not know? And one of the interesting things I found in that article, and I did not know this, was he was a very good friend of Ray Bradbury.
Yes. Ray Harryhausen, he's really known for his stop-motion animation. He really was groundbreaking. The first, though, was Willis O'Brien with King Kong in 1933.
Mm-hmm.
And Ray Harryhausen, that was one of his favorite movies, and when he saw that, he was just captivated. So he really just wanted to get into that, and he did. And he's made a whole bunch of movies. Of course, he's passed on now, but we had a tribute issue for him, Monster Memories 27.
Right.
And there's been so many movies that he's done. I mean, I'd probably miss a few if I mentioned all of them, but Clash of the Titans is a favorite, and Jason and the Argonauts, actually, that's my favorite movie of all time, fantasy-type movie. But it was just a way to animate things before there was CGI, and of course today, half the time you can't even tell what's real and what's
right.
Been created on the computer.
Right.
With him, with stop motion you can kind of tell, but it just has a charm to it, and it's just a tradition that everybody likes to celebrate. And the connection with Ray Bradbury, there was actually a third person involved there too. It was kind of three amigos, so to speak, with Forrest J. Ackerman.
That's right. Yeah.
The former editor of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, and the three of them got together. Now, I don't know how much they actually influenced each other's work, but because they were kind of stars of the genre, they hung out together.
Yeah. That would have been a hell of a dinner table to sit around, those three.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you mentioned something a second ago, and it really is true. You said something about CGI and how you can't tell what's real and what's not real anymore. And the ironic thing is that's really the point of CGI. They made CGI so good that they didn't want you to be able to tell what was real and what wasn't real, to make everything look like it was actually really there. And the stop motion that Ray Harryhausen did, it wasn't like that. You could obviously see that it was a stop motion character. But to me, like that, I don't know. Maybe it was. I'm trying to figure out why that was so much better, because you wouldn't think it would be. You would think logically the better quality, the closer to real life monster would resonate more, but it really doesn't. Why do you guys think that is?
Well, at the time, it really was groundbreaking what Ray was doing, and I think his attention to detail and making it kind of, it's about as seamless as it could get back when he was working with different armatures, like with the Kong armature. So I think the mystique of how it was painstakingly edited and put together, I don't think a lot of the moviegoers at that time even really realized what stop motion was.
Right.
So to see a creature like that, I mean, that was the CGI, if you will, of that time. It hadn't been seen before, and especially the way that he did it. And the monsters that Ray created have just been, copied and duplicated time and time again in most of the modern monster films that we now love. Right. And it all comes from all of his original creations. I mean, he was just really kind of like the father of monsters, in my opinion.
See, I have a theory on that, and what I think is that we all had toys as kids, and toys, generally you had the arms, the legs, the motion of the toys was very similar to what you saw in those stop motion characters. And to me, like as a kid, that kind of resonated with me. Like, oh yeah, that's my toy. Or maybe not my toy, but very much like my toy. So that when I was playing with my own toys, it was that much closer to being movie real, if you know what I mean. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, we actually have a couple of different readers who are really big into articulated figures and Godzilla X-Plus figures. And, I mean, they create their own, they're doing stop motion now,
right.
Making their own, doing this as adult kids, doing some great Godzilla stop motion. We actually posted one onto our Facebook page this week, and, man, I saw that. I was like, oh, it was great. Baby Manila sitting on the couch with son of Godzilla, and Dad's kind of doing his own little yeah, did you guys see that on our Facebook page?
I did, yeah, that was cool.
Oh, that was hysterical. I mean, people are still doing that, playing with figures.
Right. So
recreating scenes.
Yeah, right. One of the favorite things about your magazine to me is, you guys kind of unearth like these hidden gems, because there's movies that I grew up with that I know pretty well, and there's other movies that honestly I never heard of until I saw them mentioned in a story in your magazine. So there's things like that happen all the time, but you also kind of attract certain people that do work related to those movies. One of the people that you quote unearthed in your Scary Monsters magazine, Monster Memories, I believe it was Monster Memories issue, was a guy named William Stout, who was a fantastic artist. He's right up there, in my opinion, right up there with Scott Jackson, who does all your covers, as far as being movie like realistic. Like, do you find it easier to find those kind of diamonds in the rough now that your magazine is becoming more and more popular and award winning and all that stuff?
Yeah, we get quite a few artists of all different calibers, so to speak, kind of amateurs sending in things, and so I think the popularity of the magazine has really helped that. Also being at shows, when you kind of expose the magazine and you're out there talking to people. Mm-hmm. We met William Stout at a Wizard World Con in Anaheim years ago, but we had known him from being a cover artist for Famous Monsters of Filmland, and he's done a a whole host of things. If you check out that article, I mean, it's amazing what he's done. And his favorite thing to do are murals at natural history museums and aquariums, because he just likes working large.
Right, right.
But he's a real craftsman, and he's been involved in a lot of movies and creating creatures and that sort of thing. So I didn't know a lot of his background, so it was really nice to actually talk to him and interview him. But there's plenty of people out there like that you're really surprised to see their work show up, and you didn't know it was them.
Yeah, it's fantastic work. So
we actually, if you go to our website, scarymonstersmagazine.com, and check out Rob Birchfield's work, we sell a lot of his prints. And this guy started as a tattoo artist in Pennsylvania, and he just did monsters for fun. Well, check out his unbelievable artwork.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he's actually, we did an interview feature with him. Dr. Gangrene actually did a mad interview with him a couple of issues back. I can't remember what issue we featured him in. But, yeah, all kinds of great talent out there that all love anything having to do with the genre.
Yeah, there's a lot of great talent out there. So one of the happy... I don't know. I can't say it's a happy accident. I'm not sure if it's an accident or not, but one of the happy things that have happened recently, as far as I'm concerned, has been this seeming resurgence of the horror host. And specifically, leading the way is obviously the biggest name out there right now is Joe Bob Briggs on Shudder and his last drive-in and how popular that's been. Where do you guys see that going? Do you see that kind of catching on and becoming more and more like a revival almost of the 70s and 60s and 70s and early 80s?
Well, the Internet has really kind of changed everything. YouTube and the YouTube phenomenon with we have all kinds of quote-unquote horror hosts contacting us all the time and telling us, I've got a YouTube channel, and so it's for us, it's really kind of strange because horror hosts were like Ghoulardi and the Ghoul and Svengoolie and syndicated television. So it's a changing dynamic. What's happening now, I think, with the recognition, especially of Joe Bob Briggs, and just recently we were inducted into the Horror Host Hall of Fame because we've done extensive. We have our own horror host, Dr. Gangrene, who does interviews for. He's been on television in Tennessee and for years, and has a great YouTube channel. So, Dawn, what do we talk about this all the time? Having a place on, you can't be campy. You've got to be relevant. You've got to be knowledgeable. Svengoolie, hands down, he's really the only one on MeTV network that is really known nationwide.
Right.
So I don't know. It's where is the line drawn as far as what qualifies you to be a horror host?
Yeah.
And how's that term being redefined? It's really we struggle with this constantly because we're getting contacted all the time.
Yeah, I think it's just a different world. Like back in the 70s, it was more localized. Ironically, the internet brings everyone together, but at the same time, it does the exact opposite, and it makes everybody very, very far apart, so to speak. There's not a sense of community like there used to be, and I think that's the one thing that I think that caught. In fact, I know it caught Shudder off guard when they ran those last drive-in shows because they were not expecting. They literally said last drive-in because they thought that was going to be the last show he ever did, and they broke their server the night he did that, and then they've been going ever since because it's crazy. Like the people just really responded to that, and it's kind of like this sense of togetherness and community where people come together at one time to watch one show that hasn't been around for years, especially with the TV, what do they call it, TiVo and DVRs and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it's going to be, well, it definitely isn't the same, but I was just thinking that it was really youth-driven years ago. I mean, in the 60s, you had the Beatles, you had the Rolling Stones, and you had that whole monster culture that exploded with TV with the Munsters and Addams Family. So these horror hosts, they were superstars in their local areas. You know, some of them were national, but mostly regional. So that kind of feeling, I think, isn't quite what it used to be. It's mostly adults, older folks watching some of the streaming channels that have horror hosts on there, and it's just not the same in some ways because, you know, they're trying to have the silly antics that the kids really, you know, went crazy over, and now it just sometimes falls flat.
Right.
But, you know, there's still people out there, and they're entertaining, so... and there's plenty of movies to host for sure.
Do you think that there could be a key to reaching the younger generation? Like, and if so, what do you think that might be?
Well, the toughest part of it would be the movies. You know, if you're going to show black and white movies,
right.
We know some 20, 30-somethings that would never touch a black and white movie unless they're taking a film class, and then they actually start liking them because they realize what it took to produce them.
Right, that's a shame,
so,
too.
Yeah, it's tough. And, of course, horror hosts way back when, they had to kind of run certain films that were released, and because of the cost factor, they couldn't show first-run movies and ones that were current.
Right.
And I think, obviously, that's an issue today. So.
Right. All right, so switching, you guys obviously have had more than just the one issue. You guys had issue 112 that came out that talked all about one of my favorite topics, sea monsters. So where'd that come from, the sea monster issue? Whose idea was that? Well,
it's really kind of funny because everyone goes crazy over Creature of the Black Lagoon, and we got complaints. We put the Creature from the Black Lagoon on the cover of 112, and they weren't happy because it was Creature Walks Among Us, but it's still the same Creature from the Black Lagoon. So it's really interesting because I mean that's one of my favorite creature movies. And then I don't know if you saw the back cover with Monster of Piedras Blancas, Sea Creature, Piranha. That, and talking about Ray Harryhausen again, a lot of his stop motion, 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea. So it's I think it's an all-time favorite monster. Anything having to do with Jaws, look at the phenomenon, Jaws, a shark, anything coming out of the ocean, forget it, that's scary.
But the idea came from one of our regular writers, Jason Strangus. It was last year at some point, but he said, let's think about doing maybe a sea creatures issue. And of course the sea, the ocean, that's really the kind of the undiscovered territory, so where else would there be monsters, Right.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool subgenre to touch on. It's weird that it hasn't been touched on in depth before because you're on issue, 112 at that point. That's a lot of issues. I'm sure you've gone over individual movies, but not have an entire issue dedicated to it before was kind of strange.
Yeah, I think too. This is like probably one issue that we have a lot. Most of the articles are related to that theme. Well, actually, 113 has probably got the absolute most that we've ever done. But yeah, a significant amount of the articles, some destination inner space.
Right.
A lot of people never even heard of like Terror Beneath the Sea. So it's really kind of bringing to light some films that a lot of people, if you like that like the most modern one that we have now is Guillermo del Toro's Shape, The Shape of Water.
Right.
So that's a sea creature there, but up until that point, we haven't had any sea creatures for a long time.
Yeah, it kind of goes in cycles, and I guess it just kind of got out of, they're into the zombies now. Everybody wants zombie stuff. At least they have for the last 10 or 15 years.
Yep.
So this particular issue had a feature in there that I thought was really interesting that I hadn't seen in your magazine before, called a film book. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's way back when, with the original monster magazines. A film book was kind of just a Cliff Notes version, like the old Cliff Notes of big novels. When you take a college class, you'd get the Cliff Notes, so you wouldn't have to read the entire book.
Right.
So these are just shorthands of the movies, and then there were usually some quips. Forrest Ackerman used to do it a lot. Quips in there about the movie, some comments. But it covers really the entire movie, that you can understand the whole storyline before you actually watch it. And then it gives the details on the production, when it was released, maybe the premiere,
right.
Behind the scenes folks that produced it, that sort of thing, all the actors.
And Don spends a real, he's like literally starting and stopping the movie, and writing as he watches the movie. So you're really kind of getting it's a play-by-play in someone else's words, mm-hmm. And seen through Don's eyes, and it's really a lot of people love it because they're not publicity stills, and you're actually taking screen grabs of shots from the film that you would never see in print.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely interesting. It was a neat take on just kind of a summary of a movie to kind of say, here's the highlights, here's the bullet points. Now go watch the movie and fill in the blanks. But it gives you a good idea of, maybe a movie like I hadn't seen the movie that was, I forget what the movie was, in fact, in that particular issue, but whatever it was, I hadn't seen the movie, and I went out and found the movie. I think it was on YouTube or somewhere.
The Colossus of New York?
Is that what it was? Yeah, I had not to that point seen that movie, and that was a great movie.
Yeah.
The big metal monster. Yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead.
Yeah, we've done a couple of different film books, and Dawn did one in our Scary number 5 and Scary number 6. There are special editions that are not available at Barnes & Noble and Books A Million, and we do very limited print runs, but we have a couple of film books in those issues as well.
Cool. I'll have to check that out. So one of the stories and one of the articles in this issue kind of dealt with or the idea of a menacing creature, sea creature, changing from the menacing creature to kind of a sympathetic figure. Do you guys think that's sort of sacrilege for the traditional monster kid to see the monster as a sympathetic figure?
I always kind of ended up on the monster's side, anyways. It's really interesting how it changes your view of who the monster really is. And I think that's what makes it disturbing for most viewers, is that, your whole take on the actual monster is just totally shot out the window, and you end up feeling bad for the monster instead. It's
kind of the Frankenstein effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for the most part, though, the older movies, you definitely had the creature or the killer robot or some type of monster would just be doing bad things, and the military was there to kind of blow them down. But
that's always the first choice. Blow them up.
But, if you want a good example of kind of the sympathetic type feeling for a monster-type figure, check out House of Horrors or The Brute Man.
Okay.
And that both of those star Rondo Hatton, who the award is named after. And he was a reporter, an athlete. He did all these great things. A real nice guy, apparently. But he was disfigured from, I can't even say the affliction properly, but acromegaly.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And so you really, even though he's a killer, he's called the Creeper in these movies. You really actually feel sorry for him,
right?
And not just because of the actor, but the role he's playing. And I think they're really well done. And I just watched them for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. So one of my favorite horror writers of all time is H.P. Lovecraft, and you guys touch on his work in this issue. And it's funny how he kind of sort of, at least in my opinion, he sort of kind of gets forgotten over the years. And the reality is that almost everything spawned from his ideas back in the early 20th century.
Yeah, and you don't really see, he's got a cult following.
Right.
And I think it's just increased exponentially over like the past 10 years. And I mean, I'm seeing people with Cthulhu tattoos, and it's just amazing. But we recently, well, actually last year at Monster Palooza, we had a booth, and set up next to us was an artist. He's originally from Romania, living in the UK, Mate Jacob. And one of the prints that he had there was this amazing pencil sketch of Cthulhu. And he's a huge, Mate is a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. So he actually gave me I just loved the print. He gave me a print at the end of the show. And so I've had that print for like a year, and I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the print, and I'm like, man, we've got to do something on H.P. Lovecraft, because I really believe as an artist he captures the essence of H.P.'s creatures like no one else that I have seen. I mean, there's been lots of artists that have done H.P., their own renditions of Innsmouth and all of the different creatures that he created, but I just think Mate really hit him on the head. So it's really difficult to do an article on him unless you read his work. It really is a niche. A lot of people don't really, unless you're into monsters and into that type of writing, I don't think it has as massive. It's kind of like an underground appeal.
Right. Yeah, it's wordy, but it's very interesting, and the idea.
Yeah, because he paints pictures with his words.
Yeah,
and that's an art all in itself. It takes you into a realm that your imagination fills in.
Right.
So, he was another writer that his work wasn't well received, and almost until he was gone. I mean, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and his ideas, are it's funny how science eventually catches up with fiction. And nowadays you have the idea that, people are talking about parallel universes and things like that not as a joke, but as actual science fiction, science fact, or potential science fact. And you had his ideas that were exactly
prophetic.
That. Yeah, prophetic, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and it's sad because like this issue we just put out was it's really a mag book. It's 180 pages, and we wish we could write and include more. But like to do an H.P. Lovecraft, I mean that would be a book in itself.
Right.
To even try to delve into it, but we'd be remiss if we didn't have something, because he's become iconic, and I think his popularity is just growing and growing as kids discover him.
Right. So here's a question for you guys: what do you think came first? This is a chicken or egg question. What do you think came first? Is it the horror films or is it the horror comics? Did one beget the other, and which was it?
Well, I think for the most part, the comics really were derived from the books, the novels, like Monster of Frankenstein that was featured as one of the monster comics in our magazine. That came right from Mary Shelley's novel. And then pretty much the same with Tomb of Dracula was a real popular comic as well. So unlike the superhero comics, the movies, of course, nowadays almost every movie is some type of Marvel or DC Comics derived from the comics. But yeah, I think it was more from the books themselves, and you don't really see too many comics based on the old horror movies. So
okay, so the movies came from the comics.
Books. The original books.
Oh, okay. The original books, right? Obviously, yeah, the books that were written first, and then the comics made from them, and then the movies spawned from them. So all right. So you guys have now. This is going off script here because you guys have yet another issue that you guys put out in the meantime. After I wrote some of these questions down, 113, which is all about the ladies.
Oh, geez. There's like more than 350 photos in this issue, and Dawn spent a significant amount of time doing research. A lot of people, when you talk about scream queens or femme fatales or heroic heroines, a lot of people, if you go back, what's all right? I'll just ask you, what is when you think of the first scream queen from an early before 1940s film, what woman do you think of?
It had to be Fay Wray in Kong.
Yeah, and see, there were many before her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting, too, because as Dawn started really delving into it, starting in the early 1900s, and as he progressed up until Dawn, you went into like the early 1980s. I think that's where he kind of stopped. But 100 women,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna let the writer tell you about this whole issue because it's really something.
Yeah, it seemed like a real appropriate time to cover women in film. I mean, very in depth. Although I couldn't go in depth with the original Scary 100, we called it.
Mm-hmm.
It's 30-page article, but it's profiling each one, starting with Lil Dagover from The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, the silent film from 1920, and it goes on from there.
Yeah.
But I kind of ended it at Heather Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street. So, but what it does is it gives a little profile of probably their most famous movie, and then what other movies they were in, and their guest stars, their co-stars, I should say.
Right.
And then there's others outside of that article, like Karen Black, for example. It's amazing the career that Karen Black had, and most people remember her from that Trilogy of Terror, the TV movie,
yes,
where she's fighting the Zuni warrior that runs around her house with a knife coming after her.
It gave me nightmares as a child, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Dee Wallace, of course, from E.T., and then her famous scene from The Howling.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in The Hills Have Eyes, so she's another one. She's been in a bunch of different films. And then some unknown ones. Jeannie Bates, she was in the 40s and 50s and 60s. She had a long career.
Right.
So they're not only the well-known ones that we're covering, but some of the ones that you wouldn't hear about.
Yeah. It's always been interesting to me the role of women in these horror films and sci-fi films, and the agency they've had in the film, and how that's changed over the years, and sometimes even changed within an individual movie. Because, like, for example, you mentioned Creature of the Black Lagoon. Julie Adams in that movie is the female lead in that movie. And at the beginning of the movie, she plays the part of a scientist, and she actually plays the part of a scientist. But as the movie goes on, she seems to lose that agency, and she becomes the femme fatale. Kind of goes back into that role. What do you guys think about that? How do you think that why did that keep happening, even within, like I said, an individual movie?
Oh man, and we, John, what was that? What was the movie we were watching yesterday? And they're calling the ladies dames. Get that dame over here, and it's just really, it's really interesting to see how the role. It's almost like they have to. They have to have. Listen, why don't they have a superhero that's flat chested? Flat girl. That's
flat
not
girl.
I don't know why they're doing, why they end up, you have to have an attractive woman. If you wait to see our issue. There's so many beautiful women in all of these.
Right.
They're vulnerable, and you have to have that role, and you have to have the vulnerability. You have to have the guy saving the girl from the creature. It's just part of a monster movie.
Right.
But you did mention Julie Adams. Beverly Garland was another one that kind of was in that type of scenario where she was a scientist initially. Mm-hmm. Well, she was a scientist throughout, but initially that's where she comes on screen and is dealing with, pretty complicated topics and that sort of thing. And then in the middle or end of the movie, she's essentially a scream queen, just being attacked in some fashion and kind of loses it. Whereas before, she's very scientific. So, I don't know why that is, but
yeah, it's interesting. Interesting to see that develop. And then as the years go on, the women kind of go from being the femme fatale to, when you get into the 60s, as was the typical of the times, they kind of gain that agency, and they sort of start to become the main monster in some of these movies of that time.
Hammer Films really kind of did that for women actresses. I believe they played a real instrumental role in bringing women to the forefront and being more of the villain or the monster than ever before.
Right. Definitely one of my all-time, probably my all-time favorite was Carolyn Monroe. When I saw her in, was it Captain Kronos? Back well, I would have seen it back in the mid-'80s, I guess, but the movie was from the early to mid-'70s. She was like, that was my crush. Drop-dead, gorgeous brunette. So, and I know she's still out there acting now. She's in a recent film that was just released, or will be released. Josh Kennedy's doing one, right? House of the Gorgon.
Yeah, House of the Gorgon, right. It's going to be debuting next weekend, actually, at Monster Bash in Mars, Pennsylvania, and I'll actually be traveling. I'll be making my yearly excursion to Mars, I tell people. So I'll be there for that show. But, yeah, it's debuting there, and Carolyn Monroe and Veronica Carlson.
Yeah,
and Martine Bestwick will all be there.
Veronica Carlson was another one. She was blonde, correct? She was the blonde. She was in a lot of Hammer films. Yeah. It's all coming back to me now. Yeah. So I can't let you guys go without mentioning, and I do this every time, and there's a good reason why. Scott Jackson, his covers have been, again, phenomenal. This guy is he knocks it out of the park every single issue.
Yeah, we're just really we're really blessed to be able to work with an artist that because I'm a graphic designer and really I'm trying to convey the idea of what we want in the cover to him, and Dawn will say, well, we want this, we want that, we want this, and he just comes right back to us, basically giving us exactly what we want. And his ability, what's unique about Scary Monsters magazine, unlike others, the wraparound cover art really it needs to be viewed not just as the cover. You've got to open the whole thing up and look at it because it's a diorama. It's meant to be viewed in that way. So if you're only looking at the front, you're missing half the story. And we try to convey what's inside. You know, what you're going to get when you open up the magazine by what's on the cover. And I think he does an absolute fantastic job.
Yeah.
And the traditional monster magazines from years ago, they, for the most part, had a static, just a portrait of one particular monster or actor, and we intentionally wanted to get away from that and make it more interesting to look at, you know, to actually have a scene going on. And Scott is a master at taking our ideas, and sometimes we push back on each other, which, you know, in the creative process, it really helps. And he just, you know, he surprises us every time with the color usage and that sort of thing. He's just really good at that.
It definitely stands out. You know, I go into Barnes & Noble, pick up, you know, copies of the magazine, and it absolutely stands out among the other covers every single time.
Yeah, and most people, like, when they flip it over, then they're, like, totally shocked. Like, wow, this is so cool. And it's really, I think he has the ability to really draw your eye in. Issue 112 is probably one of my favorites that Scott has done for us. I also love Monster Memories 27 with all of the Ray Harryhausen creatures.
Right.
And I'm just really big on, it's a monster magazine, and I want to see monsters on the cover, and I want to see at least one monster on every spread. So we graphically try to draw you in into reading an article that you may not normally read by giving it a good cover treatment and inside spread for the intro pages.
Right. Well, you guys definitely do a hell of a job. Again, award-winning magazine, and if anybody out there has not picked up an issue of this magazine, where can they go to get it, and where else can they go to find any of your wares that you're selling, whether it be online or in person or anywhere?
Well, if you want to take a trip back in time and really do some sincere time traveling, then you want to pick up a copy of Scary Monsters magazine at a local Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It's also available through Diamond Comics. They sell to a lot of local comic book shops where you can subscribe at a local comic shop. Just tell them you want the next issue of Scary Monsters magazine. We come out 5 times a year, so our 113 just came out like yesterday, and next issue 114, Wary of Werewolves and Leery of Lichens issue will be out in September.
Cool. And
go to scarymonstersmagazine.com and like us on Facebook.
And you guys have a sale for your older archive magazines going on right now, right?
Oh, it's the Beast Ever back issue blowout sale. $3. Stock up.
Yeah.
There's more than 100 issues at 70% off cover price. And, man, even though it may have come out 25 years ago or 26 years ago, it's a new issue to you.
Right.
So there you go.
Hey, I'm going to start looking.
One other thing we're working on as well, just for monster fans out there, is we're working on putting together books going forward for other people, for other authors. And one of our writers, Mark Glassy, most Scary Monsters fans will know who he is because he's a regular writer for us. And he's also a PhD and a scientist. And so we're working on scary film biology right now, a book that he'll have coming out hopefully pretty soon.
Very cool. Very, very cool. All right, Don, Vicki, again, it's always great to have you on the show. I wish we could do this more often, but I know you guys are busy as hell out there with the production schedule you guys keep. But it's worth it because if anybody picks up this magazine, they will see the work you guys put into this and see why you guys are so busy.
Well, it's really a joy, and like I said, it is time travel, and you are definitely transported when you open up the pages of any issue of Scary Monsters. And I had sent you guys a link to well, actually, I don't know if you've downloaded the augmented reality app on HP Reveal onto your smartphone.
Yes.
Have you guys tried that yet?
Not with this issue, but I did do that with the last issue. I just got a new phone, so I have to re-download it. But yeah, I did do it with the last issue.
Well, I gave you the pages that the augmented reality features appear in issue 113, and we just shared it on Facebook because a lot of times it's like looking for an Easter egg in the magazine, but
right.
We've got some great augmented reality in issue 113.
All right. Very cool. Well, again, Don, Vicki, I want to thank you guys for coming on Paradelphia with us tonight.
Thank you, Rick.
And, again, keep up the great work, and I will talk to you guys soon.
Stay toxic.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
All right, Mike. So that was Scary Monsters Magazine, Don and Vicki Smeraldi.
Very cool. That was really... They just know their stuff. Holy crap.
Oh,
you guys were going, I'm amazed at how much you know.
Oh, yeah. I learned a lot of it, honestly, from reading this magazine. Like, I was always a fan of the films. But I never knew this, true story, I never knew this magazine even existed until about 4 years ago.
Right.
And at that point, they had already put out like 100 issues. So we're talking about just a second ago about the back issues for $3.
Uh-huh.
I'm going back and checking that shit out because, some of those, like she said, it's new to you. Like, it's not that it's not relevant to like new movies. So the movies they write about are these old genre
But that's
movies.
a huge niche.
Oh, sure.
Niche, however you
Sure.
say it. Niche. But anyway, it's a huge area of people that love that kind of stuff. Me and you have been to like Monster Mania Con.
Oh, yeah.
And you see all these other like horror cons are all summer long everywhere.
Right.
And you go to these places and that's what they show in their little theaters
Yeah.
is older movies, older horror movies, older monster movies. And people love that stuff.
In fact, after the show, it just reminded me of something. I got to talk to you about something related to this.
Uh-oh.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're going to take a last break here for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and wrap things up. All right, we are back here on Paradelphia on Toxic Radio. And if you guys did not hear, tonight has been an interesting night, man.
Tonight has been
an interesting night.
It's been interesting. It's been exhilarating.
A little scary.
A little scary.
In two different ways.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So yeah, if you missed the first half of the show, literally almost the entire first hour, we were under a tornado warning where it said to literally take cover, and it was kind of freaky for a few minutes there. So we had quite a long break, and we came back, and most of the second hour has been taken up by talking to Don and Vicki Smeraldi from Scary Monsters Magazine. So
very cool. I'm gonna have to check that. I haven't seen the magazine. I gotta check it out.
You will like it. You know what you're gonna like, Mike? I'll tell you what you're gonna like. They mentioned it right at the end there.
Yeah.
They have this feature they did it started about 3 or 4 issues ago where they do augmented reality. So what it is you download this app on your phone, and when you hold the screen over certain pictures in the magazine, it brings the picture to life.
Very cool.
So it's really cool.
I love it. It brings another layer to buying a magazine. I like it.
Yeah. And you can do a lot of things with it. Like there's a lot of potential for doing. I was talking to them at one point. Doing stories even instead of writing an article, you can literally do like a video, chat or whatever about the story. There's a lot of different things you can do, to manipulate the feature.
Right.
So it's pretty cool. It's a very cool feature.
Very cool. I like it. But
again, I want to thank Don and Vicki for coming on. And again, if you guys have not checked out Scary Monsters Magazine, you have to do this. Either go to their website, scarymonstersmagazine.com, or go to, like she said, at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. They always have issues coming out. They just put out their newest issue 113, which is all about the women of horror. Their previous issues this year have been, like we talked about a few minutes ago, they had an issue 112, all about sea creatures, monster memories, which is people writing in about their experiences with these movies. So it's very cool. It's a very cool magazine and retro feel to it.
Yeah.
So you gotta check it out. So again, next week we have Barry Strom coming on the air, and he's going to talk to us about his latest book, where he has channeled, because he has his channeling board that he has talked about with us before. He channels many famous people. He's upping the ante next week, and he has said he has been in contact with Jesus Christ.
Oh, boy.
And he has been essentially collaborating on this book and asking him some questions that humanity may want answers to.
I am 100% in. I want to hear what he has to say. I want to know what's going on.
So that is next week on Paradelphia. But for now, we're going to wrap things up here. And I want to thank Don and Vicki for coming on. Mike, thanks for hanging in there during the tornado warning and whatnot.
I'm here with you, brother. We're going down together.
Going down together, baby. All right. So thank you guys for listening. And it's been fun. We are Paradelphia, and we are out of here.